Interesting new matter of public record has been attached. Those sweet, sweet words.
Okay, let's take a look at what MN MN Public Records had to say. He quoted a bunch of people's chats. We know Grandpa was in town a few weeks of the Coke stream. Guy was supposedly driving the kids 80 miles a day. He had to have seen the house. Nick's dad was at the house a few times. I remember around tax time when Nick's dad came over, I was standing at the entryway with him. And I think he was either picking up the kids or dropping. I think he was picking up the kids. This was, I think, the last week I was there. When's taxes? April 15th? Yeah, this was the last week I was there. And Nick's dad came to pick the kids up or drop them off again. I don't want to say for sure because I can't remember. And he yelled at Nick about doing his tax. He's like, "Now do your goddamn taxes." That he said something to the effect of, I don't want to, this isn't a quote, but he said, "That's why I'm up here, to make sure you do your taxes." So it was something about, I don't know if Nick's unreliable with doing his taxes or what, but his dad pointed at him and said, "Do your goddamn taxes." And Nick's like, I'm going to. I thought that was weird. I didn't know what the fuck that was all about. I'm sure he did his taxes. But yeah, he was up. And then we went to dinner the next day. So that was the week I like, because I think that night was the night that Kayla and Nick started fighting regarding me. And then Kayla's like, "He's really fucking mad. I don't know if you should be here. I don't know what's going on." And I'm like, why don't I take off? If you guys are going to, she's saying, okay. And I'm like, I'm leaving. And Nick's like, "No, you fucking stay here. You don't leave just because she says you can leave." And I'm like, dude, I'm going to dip out. "Don't be a fucking pussy. Stay here." I'm like, I'm going to go. So Kayla and I thought, I'm going to go. Maybe that'll diffuse things a little bit. Because Nick was mad at Kayla that Kayla forgave me for the proverbs thing. Remember when I said I read the proverbs? I didn't read the proverbs. Kayla forgave me for that. Nick was mad because he didn't think Kayla would forgive him for not reading the proverbs. Or some fucking stupid coked out shit. And so they were fighting about that. And I thought, well, if I'm the problem, why don't I just remove myself? Maybe that'll make her night a little easier. April was at the doctor for another sinus infection. She came back, and then those two were yelling at each other. And April looks at me. She goes, "What's going on?" I go, "Shh," because they're screaming at each other. I'm like, I can't focus on just craziness. And then April goes, "You just don't give a shit about me." I'm like, what the fuck is going on? Like, April came in. "What are they doing?" And I'm like, "Shh, hold on." And April's like, "You don't fucking care about me." And then she goes into the bathroom. I'm like, what? Don't go in there. That's where the cocaine is. You just got back from a sinus infection. What are you doing? That's why this keeps happening to you. It was a wild fucking night. But that was the day I took, or that we all went out to dinner. And Nick's parents had been watching the kids all week, so we could all fucking do whatever. And nobody, like, Nick wouldn't pick up the tab for dinner. His parents had been watching the kids all week, so I picked up the tab and was like, "Thank you for watching the kids, by the way." And I think we talked about singer-songwriters because his dad and I have the same gay taste in music. Croce fans, I think he also likes Dan Fogelberg, which I can't get into. So Bob was in town. Yes. Did it never occur to the man to send the Rekieta children on a trip with Grandma while he and whoever else sat Nick down for an intervention? Just before the arrest, one of Kayla's family members reached out to me, and we basically came up with the plan of, if I can get her away from the house, would you meet me and we could talk to her about getting some help? And then it didn't fucking matter because the next morning they got arrested. So, whoop. Everything that Nick and Aaron have said suggests that while Kayla's family worked to get Kayla and the kids out of the drug den, Nick's parents have been enablers of him and his degeneracy. I don't think they knew. I mean, who knows whose brain goes to that, right? Like, whose brain goes to that point? All right. So this is MN Public Records. He says, "Interesting new matter of public record attached. Not all that new, as it's from the first hearing in May. But now that the court reporter got around to completing the requested transcript that Frank now says he wants to use as an exhibit at trial, it's an interesting read for whatever he thought would be useful while we wait around for the trial. Your speculation from the icy hot Sonichu leaks was correct that at least Nick's dad likely saw the house shortly before the arrest. I only know he saw it like early April, but it was a fucking disaster. Like, it was a nuclear bomb. It was disgusting. There was one time after I left that I saw the house. Kayla had showed me. It was worse. It had gotten worse in the week or so that I was out of there. It was quite a bit worse. Should have saw the interaction between Nick and I. He walked by in the kitchen, and I went, I don't think we liked each other anymore. Bob likely saw the house shortly before the arrest, but as is often the case throughout this saga, it gets worse. Oh, no. Now we see the new revelation of the state's concerns that both sets of grandparents were in the home the week before the removal, such that they would have seen firsthand at least the disgusting state of the home, if not various telltale signs of ongoing drug use. May I defend both sets of grandparents here? This is where I think I can be valuable. This is where I don't think I'm just gossiping. Like, I've got an insider's perspective. Now, I don't know. It seems like with all the documents I've read, it seems like things got worse for all three of them in the 6 weeks I was gone. Like, the guy who bothered them about drugs was gone so they could go crazier. Like, April having Coke and cards out on the nightstand is not something it was never that brazen. It never left the bathroom unless it was, like, taken to a hotel. But, like, in defense of Kayla and Nick's parents, when they came over, I never saw them come further than the entryway. One time I think I saw his mom in the kitchen, but like usually they didn't leave the entryway. So you can maybe see like the disgusting state of the living room and maybe like how messy the kitchen was, maybe. But for the most part, like there would have been no signs of drug use other than their own children's behavior that the parents would have seen. They would have just seen a messy house, which, you know, how old do your kids have to be before you stop telling them clean your fucking house? You know, I don't really know if that's their place. But all right. They would have seen firsthand the disgusting state of the home, causing the state to want someone that is more versed in identifying these symptoms to be supervising parental visitation instead of just trusting the grandparents to handle it. Just how willfully ignorant would both sets have to be to see firsthand the state of the house in mid-May and do nothing about it? Or could it be that at least one set, if not both, did do something about it? Okay. I mean, I don't know. I think that... So this is the May hearing. So the state didn't go for that argument. All right. Other neat highlights include Nick's characteristically reveling in the chance to hear the sound of his own voice for a multi-page soliloquy, even though his court-appointed attorney sitting right there was supposed to do the talking. Or his second soliloquy rambling about how best to put a stop to some sort of state-connected big bad leaker boogeyman or whatever, or a laugh at Nick's Herculean work ethic that used all the time from the May 24th release to the May 28th hearing to only get the home much cleaner than what was initially found, as opposed to objectively clean. You know, I will say this, that home was in such a shit show state, it could have taken 4 days just to see the floor again. Just the amount of clothes that would have needed to be processed through the wash machine. I don't know if 4 days running that machine continuously would have been able to get it back to where it needs to be. And then just the sheer amount of clothes that would need to be folded in the living room just so you could see the floor again. And then vacuuming, forget that. Those carpets were fucking shot, dude. The much cleaner, or his echoing the Mayor Cope stream with the audacity to say a judge with a straight face that there's no indication other than a statute about any child endangerment or parental drug use in parenting's vicinity ever having taken place, despite all the evidence to the contrary. I mean, it was... I mean, especially if they're... I don't know what's in their pockets at all time, but if they're carrying vials and bullets on them, you know... I mean, there was... I don't know if it was always in Kayla's purse, but Kayla had a tray that was always full. And I know that when we went places, it would be in her purse. About all the evidence to the contrary. Or his very odd, specific fixation on the children's seemingly coached statements that any testing of the children that would result in drug use, according to the children, would be because of secondary exposure from some other source. Well, that's not how it gets into those levels in your hair. You know, that's the big lie. You know, I think he said it on Chrissy's stream too. He goes, it could have been in the air. It's like, I thought you said you didn't have it, but it could have been in the air. And no, that's not how that works. Hair grows out from inside the body. It doesn't, the hair is washed before it's tested. It's cleaned. So all you have is what's in the follicle. So if it was from outward exposure, it wouldn't show up in a hair test. So that's just kind of a bullshit cope. Even though there was no mention of any such test results having come back yet at the time, almost as though he already had reason to expect what the upcoming test results would reveal and felt the need to get ahead of the story. Oh no, you don't say that in court, motherfucker. So before they even came out with any test results, he said, any child endangerment or parental drug use in parenting's vicinity ever having taken place, despite all the evidence to the contrary, or his very oddly specific fixation on the children's seemingly coached statements that any testing of the children that would result in drug use, according to the children, would be because of secondary exposure from some other source. So before any kid even tested positive, he was coming up with a reason as to why they might test positive. I would never think to do that. That to me just seems like someone who knew a kid was going to test positive and wanted to get out in front of it. This guy tattles on himself too much, and that's coming from me. Because at least I mean to. Yikes, dude. That is fucked up. All right, well, that's the latest. I guess if you want to go on Kiwi Farms and check that out, you can. But oh my goodness. April's parents look like they were helpless. She probably went full brat, someone says. That makes me feel bad because I know her dad. When I talked to her dad, like literally the night before the arrest, because I said, look, man, I'm out. Like, you gotta keep an eye on this. I can't do this shit anymore. And he was like, I know, something's wrong. He goes, she doesn't sit still. She's always looking up at the ceiling. He said, when you guys came over for Easter, I knew something was wrong. He goes, I knew there was something different about her. She was just acting different. She couldn't sit still. So, her dad knew something was up, and I'm guessing she's just not listening. For fuck's sake, she's 29 years old. She doesn't have to if she doesn't want to. Keanu is dumb and believes April's BS. Well, is it dumb? Or is it just, a bubblehead who wants her pretty friend back? Maybe she's doing the best she can. New guy says, why didn't they listen to you to stop? Why didn't they listen to you to stop? Have you met junkies before? Have you met one? I never had before this. Yeah, I'd have an uncle and a friend who was an alcoholic. But I'll tell you this, drug addiction is way different than alcoholism, at least to me. Even after drugs were found next to Emily, I gave everybody the either this shit goes or I go speech, and April yelled at me and said I was a piece of shit and I was awful for saying that, and nobody who actually loved her would ask her to stop. Kayla was responsive. She just hugged me and said, I know, and she's crying and she feels terrible about it. Like that was the only human reaction I got out of that whole situation. So the word hopeless comes to mind when it comes to really all three of them. Hopeless. That would be the best adjective I could go with. So nothing really new in all that. Just really kind of, what do you call that? They call it a transcript too in court? The court reporter releasing all their notes. Just kind of feel like MN. I'm not saying MN Public Records is running out of steam. I'm just saying that, like, how many fucking documents can exist with this one thing? Jesus. I think the next thing they're waiting for is, like, in a week or two, the court's going to make their ruling on the child protection trial or hearing that they recently had.